Got a question from Julius on Write Useful Books. So the whole thesis is that it's really hard to market books. So if you treat them as a problem-solving product, which convincingly solves a problem for a reader who cares, that you're able to activate a recommendation loop for the book and kind of turn on long-term back catalog organic growth for books, which is usually uncommon. Kind of my core argument is that you can design problem-solving nonfiction specifically in this way. And part of the process is beta reading. I mean, you see I'm doing my beta reading for the mom test revision at the moment. I rely on that pretty heavily to make sure the book works in the way it's supposed to. But even before the beta reading, there's another process, which I call being the book or teaching the book, or it's kind of the equivalent of if you know startup stuff, it's like a concierge MVP for the book. Like if the book is basically productized knowledge, a productized outcome, like the book is promising to get you from this situation to this outcome if you spend the 2 hours and read it. Well, you need to know that the knowledge works. Like a lot of books, they make a big claim on the cover. They go, I'm going to help you solve this problem, and you go, oh, that's amazing. And you pick up the book, you buy it, you read it. And at the end, like that problem's not solved. You're still in the same situation. And authors go, well, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, as if it's all the reader's concern. And sure, like if a reader refuses to do anything, like nothing's going to happen. But you can also write a book so that it is easier to take action on. And you can kind of debug a book the same way you debug a product. Teaching the book or being the book, the stuff I talk about in chapter 3, is essentially taking the observation that like below a useful book is a progression of knowledge, understanding, and tasks. I call this the skeleton, like the educational skeleton. It's the same way I think about designing educational workshops. I'm like, what are the learning outcomes? What are the things they need to know and believe? Then what are the activities they need to take to be able to experience those things so they believe them? And what are the activities they need to take once they believe them to get results from it out in the real world? So to me, all of that can be learned independently of the manuscript through teaching or coaching. The smaller the group, the better, actually, because if you're teaching too many people at once, it's hard to know where any individual person is stuck or what they're not getting. Whereas if you're sitting down with them one-on-one, basically trying to coach them to get the same outcome that your book would give them, but with you in the room rather than your book in the room, you're able to find like, is this the right story to make this point? Do they get this metaphor? Like, is this framework clear-cut and unambiguous? When I ask them to take this action, do they understand what they're supposed to be doing? Do they believe in me and the process enough to take the risk of trying something that they don't know how to do or haven't done before, even though it might not work or it might be difficult? Like once they believe, like, are they capable of taking it? Is it at the right difficulty level relative to where they are in the journey? Like, are the examples I'm choosing resonating with their worldview and what they want to achieve? Or are they making people roll their eyes because they can't really see themselves in the examples you've chosen? All of that can be figured out before you've written a word of the manuscript. And it's way faster to iterate on a coaching conversation like this, or even a small group workshop. It's way faster to iterate on that than to iterate on a manuscript. The former takes a few hours to iterate on your educational skeleton. The latter takes, weeks or months. I have had the best luck writing when I've taught first. And in some cases, even if I'm writing something I haven't taught, I go back and I try teaching it or consulting it or coaching it, just because that's one of the ways that I figure out whether this part of the book works properly. So like whenever people ask me like, did I mom test the mom test? Well, kind of, but I did it mainly through teaching. So like less like asking questions and more like, hey, you're trying to do this thing. Can I help you try to do it? And then seeing which parts of my advice worked and which parts didn't, which parts made people skeptical and which parts made them excited. And then once I note all that down, the book was really easy to write because then it's just getting the words to read clearly and not having to worry about whether like the knowledge behind the words is the correct knowledge, right? You're kind of like isolating the issues and testing them one at a time to give yourself a faster iteration speed and not have rewriting the entire manuscript as a bottleneck every time you realize you could explain something a bit better. How structured is it? How rigid? I don't have a strong opinion on that. I think different authors are different. Getting the key framework, the key metaphor, the key anecdote, the key progression is enough, and the whole book kind of falls out of that in a pretty self-evident way. At times there's like a really specific set of actions, like the worksheet or the like action item of the book that needs to be like relentlessly tested. And if you get that one little piece right, the rest of the book is a lot more forgiving. Depends on the book. Would often go in with almost like my table of contents as my outline for the coaching conversation. And then I'd kind of try to figure out like, where are you at? What are you struggling with right now? What are you trying to achieve? Then be like, you're up to this stage. Or like, these are the the chapters that I'm planning to write into the book or the frameworks that would apply to your current situation. And then I'll be like, cool, okay, let's try this. Let me talk to you about this. Let me ask you about this. And then the important thing is a week later, you got to follow up and be like, hey, we talked about all this stuff a week ago. Did it work? Did you try it? What happened? Where did it go wrong? Why did you decide not to do it? And at that point, you're running kind of a more mom test conversation to understand their action or non-action with regards to the advice you gave them. The way to get them to agree to that follow-up conversation is that you offer to get them more help. It's like, hey, tell me what didn't work so that I can clarify and do better. The way you balance the value equation so that they don't feel like you're going to trick them and try to sell them into paid consulting services or something. Because people are suspicious of free help. You're like, hey, I'm doing research for this book I'm writing. It would benefit me to try to help you a ton because I'm going to make a better book, So you clarify why you're willing to give them the time. Basically, based on what I'm hearing from these coaching sessions or workshops or follow-ups, and I'm figuring out what works, what doesn't, I'm basically updating my table of contents and being like, ooh, I should use this example, not this example. Or oh, people were really skeptical about this framework and confused what the division between these two categories is. I go back into the tank, I try to update it and then bounce it off my users, in this case, readers or learners, beneficiaries, whatever you want to call them, in the most efficient way I can, which, I like to start by teaching, but at a certain point it becomes a partial manuscript of key chapters that I'm beta reading, like I'm currently doing with the mom test. And then over time it'll become a full manuscript that I'm beta reading and so on. Thanks for the question and hope that is helpful. Let me know if there's anything else on that topic you want to hear more about.